The moment I stepped into my house, I knew something was off. The scent of candles, ones I didn't light. The faint rustling of sheets down the hall. Then, a sound that made my blood run cold. A breathless moan. My wife's voice. My vision blurred with rage as I stormed toward the bedroom. The door wasn't fully closed, just enough for me to see shadows moving inside. "Tyler, you're amazing," she purred, her voice dripping with a kind of pleasure I hadn't heard in years. Tyler Matthews. My business rival. My enemy. I kicked the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. Emily screamed, yanking the sheets up. Tyler froze, half naked, his stupid smirk fading as he registered my presence. For a second, silence. Then she had the audacity to look at me and say, "What the hell are you doing here?" What the hell was I doing here? My wife was in bed with another man, our bed, and she was acting like I was the problem? My pulse roared in my ears. My fingers clenched into fists. The way Tyler just sat there, completely unfazed, like he had every right to be there, made my skin crawl. Emily groaned dramatically, running a hand through her tousled hair. "Nathan, look, you weren't supposed to be back yet. You weren't supposed to see this." "Oh, so if I hadn't walked in, everything would have been fine?" That's how she saw it. Tyler stretched, lazily reaching for his shirt at the foot of the bed. "Relax, man. No need to get all worked up." I lunged before I even knew what I was doing. My fist connected with his jaw, the impact sending him sprawling off the bed and onto the floor with a satisfying thud. He groaned, clutching his face, completely caught off guard. Emily shrieked. "What the hell, Nathan?" I turned to her, my chest heaving. "You're asking me that? Are you serious?" She rolled her eyes, of all things. Like I was being dramatic. Like she wasn't the one who just blew up our marriage. "Nathan, can we just be adults about this?" she huffed, pulling the sheets tighter around her like she was the victim. I stared at her, disbelief mixing with my fury. "Adults?" My voice was low, dangerous. "You mean like how you snuck around behind my back with him?" I gestured to Tyler, who was still on the floor, groaning like a kicked dog. She had the nerve to look bored. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. You're always working, always too busy for me. I need it." "Don't." I cut her off, my voice like ice. "Don't even try to blame this on me." She scoffed, like my anger was some kind of inconvenience. "Look, you're back now, so I guess we should talk about this. Just step outside for a minute so I can get dressed." Step outside? Step outside so she and Tyler could figure out their next move? I let out a short, humorless laugh. "No, you're going to get dressed, and he's going to get the hell out of my house. Right now." Tyler finally managed to sit up, rubbing his jaw. "You didn't have to hit me, man." I took a step forward, and he scrambled to his feet. All right, I'm going." He grabbed his jeans, pulling them on hastily, muttering under his breath. "Jesus, you act like she's some innocent angel. She's been playing this game a long time, buddy." I saw red. Emily shot him a warning look, but it was too late. "What did you just say?" I growled. Tyler smirked again, regaining some of his arrogance. "Come on, Nate. You really think this is the first time?" I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Emily's face hardened. "Tyler, shut up." But the damage was done. My heart pounded painfully in my chest. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emily crossed her arms, suddenly defensive. "Nathan, don't start." "How long?" A flicker of hesitation. Then she sighed, like she was being forced to admit something trivial. "A few months." I stared at her. This woman, the woman I built a life with, the woman I thought I knew, wasn't even sorry. Tyler grabbed his shoes and walked toward the door, clapping me on the shoulder as he passed. "Tough break, man." I shoved him off me so hard he stumbled. "Get the hell out." He chuckled and disappeared down the hallway. A moment later, the front door opened and slammed shut. Silence. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing her temples like I was the headache. "All right, are you done throwing your little tantrum?" Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, my voice calm, too calm. "You think this is a tantrum?" She looked up, her expression unreadable. "No, Emily," I continued. "This is just the beginning." She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and what are you gonna do? Cry about it? Make me feel bad?" "Sorry, Nathan, but I don't feel bad. You were boring. I needed more." My hands tightened into fists, but I forced myself to stay still. She thought she had control here. She thought she could cheat, humiliate me, and just move on like nothing happened. But she was wrong. A slow smile crept onto my lips, one that made her shift uncomfortably. "You're right," I said softly. "You don't feel bad. But you will." For the first time that night, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Uncertainty. She opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't wait to hear it. I turned on my heel and walked out. Not because I was giving up, because the game had just begun. I walked out of that bedroom, but the fire inside me didn't die down. My whole body trembled with adrenaline, rage boiling just beneath my skin. I wanted to break something. Smash the picture frames of our fake perfect life. Tear down the walls of this house that now felt like a prison. But no, that would be letting her win. That would be me reacting like a fool, like a man who just got his whole world flipped upside down. Instead, I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and walked straight into my home office. Emily didn't follow. Good. I shut the door behind me and locked it. My hands gripped the edge of my desk as I tried to steady my breathing. Tyler's smug face flashed in my mind, his words like poison in my veins. "You really think this is the first time?" That was the part that kept echoing. The betrayal was bad enough, but the casual way he said it, like it was some inside joke, like I was the idiot here, that made my stomach twist. I yanked open my desk drawer and pulled out my laptop. If she had been playing this game for months, or longer, then I needed to know everything. And I had the means to find out. Emily had always been careless with her passwords. Years of marriage meant I knew most of them by heart. And if she changed them? Well, I had recovery access to nearly all of our shared accounts. I opened her email first. Nothing obvious. But then I checked her trash folder, and that's where things got interesting. Dozens of deleted emails from an account I didn't recognize. Sent late at night, sometimes at odd hours when she should have been asleep next to me. I clicked one open. "Last night was insane. You're something else. Let's meet again soon." No name. No details. Just a date, 3 weeks ago. I clicked another. "Can't stop thinking about you." He still doesn't suspect anything, right? Huh. My grip on the mouse tightened. Who the hell was this? Tyler? Or someone else? I copied the email address and started searching. If she thought I was just going to sit back and accept this, she had no idea who she was dealing with. Footsteps outside my office. A soft knock. "Nathan." I didn't answer. The handle jiggled, then stopped. She sighed. "Oh, so now you're going to sulk in there all night." I forced myself to stay silent. "You're being ridiculous," she said, her voice laced with irritation. "We need to talk about this like adults." I laughed under my breath. Adults? She burned our marriage to the ground, and now wanted to play the reasonable one? I stayed quiet. She huffed. "Fine, be a child. But don't expect me to sit around feeling guilty, because I don't." The sound of her footsteps fading down the hall was all I needed to hear. I turned back to my laptop, eyes burning into the screen. Let the games begin. I stayed up all night. By the time the sun started creeping over the horizon, I had pieced together more than I ever wanted to know. Tyler wasn't the only one. There were at least 3 other men. Different names, different emails, but the same pattern. She was careful, deleting messages, hiding things. But not careful enough. One email stood out among the rest. "I told you it's handled. His name is on everything. He'll be the one left with nothing, not me." I read it 3 times before it clicked. The prenup, the joint accounts, the business investments. I had been so focused on the cheating, I hadn't even considered the bigger picture. She wasn't just betraying me. She was setting me up to lose everything. My blood turned to ice. I wasn't dealing with a woman who had simply gotten bored in our marriage. No, Emily had been planning this. Carefully, methodically, and I had been blind. Until now. I closed my laptop and rubbed my face, exhaustion weighing on me. But sleep? No. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. I needed a plan. A real plan. If she thought she was going to walk away from this unscathed, she was dead wrong. By the time I stepped out of my office, Emily was already up, dressed in one of her expensive silk robes, sipping coffee like she hadn't detonated our life the night before. She glanced up as I walked in. "Oh, so you're finally done pouting?" I didn't respond. Just walked to the coffee machine and poured myself a cup, the tension thick between us. She tapped her nails on the counter, watching me. "Are you planning to act normal now? Or is this going to be an all-week sulk fest?" I took a slow sip of coffee, meeting her eyes over the rim of the mug. "Actually," I said, voice calm, "I think we should take a trip." That caught her off guard. Her perfectly shaped eyebrows lifted slightly. A trip? I nodded. Yeah, just the two of us. No distractions. You said we needed to talk like adults, right? Let's do that. Somewhere private. She narrowed her eyes, studying me. You're serious? I shrugged. You wanted me to be mature about this. I'm trying. She set her coffee down, tilting her head. Huh, didn't expect that. I smiled, slow and easy. I know, because she thought she knew me. She thought she had me all figured out. But she had no idea what was coming next. I watched Emily sip her coffee, her lips pressing into a small, thoughtful pout. She wasn't stupid, conniving, heartless, and fake, sure, but not stupid. She studied me like she was trying to crack open my skull and read the thoughts swirling inside. A trip, she repeated slowly, tapping one manicured nail against the counter. I sipped my own coffee, keeping my expression unreadable. Yeah, somewhere quiet. Just us. No distractions, no work, no phones. I gave a small, dry chuckle. You said you wanted to talk about things like adults. Let's do that. Emily leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. The silk robe slid just enough to show off her shoulder, like she was testing whether her charm still worked on me. Maybe in the past, it would have. Maybe the old me, the fool, would have seen that glimpse of skin and forgotten all about last night's betrayal. Not this time. Her eyes flickered with something. Suspicion? Maybe. But then she shrugged, feigning nonchalance. All right, a trip could be nice. Where were you thinking? I set my mug down, watching her carefully. The cabin. She hesitated. The cabin. The one we rarely visited. The one up in the mountains, miles away from anyone. Where no one would hear her scream if she tried to pull any more of her games. Emily's lips parted slightly, but she caught herself. The cabin. She let out a short laugh. That's unexpected. I thought you'd suggest somewhere tropical, maybe a spa retreat where I could get a massage while we talk things out. I gave her a slow smile. No distractions, remember? Her gaze lingered on me for a beat too long. Then she nodded. Fine. The cabin it is. Good. Let the game begin. The drive was long and silent. Emily scrolled through her phone, ignoring me entirely. I glanced over every now and then, catching glimpses of messages. A few from her friends, probably the same ones who covered for her while she sneaked around. One name kept popping up. Jonathan. Not Tyler. Someone new. How many had there been? She must have noticed me glancing because she turned the phone away slightly. Seriously? Are you going to be that guy now? I kept my hand steady on the wheel. What guy? The guy who suddenly starts snooping and getting jealous. She rolled her eyes. You never cared about my phone before. I let out a short laugh. You're right. I didn't. I met her gaze briefly, just long enough to see the slight twitch in her jaw. That was my mistake. Emily didn't respond. We drove the rest of the way in silence. By the time we reached the cabin, the sun was dipping below the trees, painting the sky in streaks of red and orange. A fitting color for what was about to unfold. Emily stretched as she stepped out of the car, rolling her shoulders. Ugh, that drive was awful. My back is killing me. I grabbed the bags and headed toward the door. Go inside. Get comfortable. She didn't need to be told twice. The moment I unlocked the cabin, she disappeared inside, her heels clicking against the wooden floor. I set the bags down, locking the door behind me. It was time to set things in motion. I had spent the last 24 hours planning every move, every word, every trap. And Emily had walked right into it. After dinner, where Emily spent most of the time flipping through her phone and sighing dramatically, I poured us both a glass of wine. She took hers without hesitation, swirling the deep red liquid before taking a sip. All right, Nathan. She leaned back against the couch, crossing her legs. We're here. No distractions. So what now? I sipped my own wine, letting the silence stretch. Then, slowly, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. She raised an eyebrow. I thought this was a no-phone trip. I ignored her, tapped the screen, and played the recording. Her voice filled the room. I told you it's handled. His name is on everything. He'll be the one left with nothing, not me. The blood drained from Emily's face so fast, I thought she might pass out. Her eyes snapped to me, wide, alert. Where did you get that? I set the phone down on the coffee table. You tell me, Emily. For the first time in years, she was truly speechless. I leaned forward, my voice calm. How long? Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Nathan. How long? Her fingers clenched around the wine glass, nails pressing against the glass. It's not what you think. I laughed. That's funny, because I think you've been planning to screw me over for months. I gestured at the phone. And that recording? That kinda confirms it. She set her glass down carefully, her mask slipping. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? I tilted my head. Tyler wasn't the only one, was he? Her lips pressed into a thin line, a crack in her carefully constructed facade. You planned this, I continued. The affairs, the money, the accounts, you planned all of it. She took a deep breath, exhaling slowly. Then, to my utter shock, she smirked. A slow, calculating smirk. And what if I did? She said, voice smooth as silk. I stared at her. She shrugged. What? You thought I married you for love? She laughed, an actual, amused laugh. Nathan, please. You were convenient, reliable. You made good money. You provided stability, and you were too blind to see what was happening right in front of you. Something cold settled in my chest. I had expected lies, excuses, maybe even fake tears. But this? She wasn't even pretending to be sorry. She stood up, stretching. So now what? You caught me. Congrats. What are you gonna do? Cry about it? Threaten to leave? She rolled her eyes. Go ahead, Nathan. I already took what I needed from you. I didn't move. Didn't blink. She had just played her final card. What she didn't realize was that the game wasn't over. Not even close. I leaned back against the couch, sipping my wine slowly. Oh, Emily, I murmured, shaking my head. You have no idea what's coming next. Her smirk faltered, just for a second. And that second? It was everything I needed. Emily's smirk lingered, but there was a flicker in her eyes. Uncertainty. She didn't like being outmaneuvered, and for the first time, she realized she might not be in control. She ran a hand through her hair, pretending to be unimpressed. All right, Nathan, you got your little gotcha moment. But let's be real. You're not gonna do anything. You're too predictable. I tilted my head. Predictable? She shrugged. Yeah, you're the nice guy. The one who takes the high road. You're probably thinking about getting a lawyer, moving out, doing everything the right way. She waved a hand dismissively. But let's be honest. You won't win, Nathan. The house, the accounts, everything's in your name. She smiled sweetly. And guess who's gonna walk away clean? I chuckled, low and quiet. Oh, Emily, you're really bad at this. She frowned. Bad at what? Reading the room. Her brows knitted together. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. You think I didn't know what you were doing? You really thought you were the smartest person in the room? That I'd just sit back, cry, and let you walk all over me? Her lips parted slightly, a hint of confusion flashing across her face. I smirked. You think you've won, but you don't even realize the game's already over. Emily's jaw tensed. Nathan, stop talking in riddles and spit it out. I pulled my phone from my pocket, tapping the screen, and then I turned it toward her. Her face drained of color. The bank app was open. Every account, empty. The savings, the offshore accounts she thought I didn't know about, the slush fund she had hidden under a fake business name. Gone. She shot up from the couch, snatching her phone from the table and frantically tapping at the screen. Her fingers moved fast, scrolling, refreshing, checking. Nothing. Not a single cent left. Her breathing quickened, and for the first time, real panic flashed in her eyes. What did you do? I leaned back, enjoying the sight. What's wrong, Emily? I asked mockingly. Did something happen to all that money you stole from me? She turned on me, nostrils flaring. This isn't funny, Nathan. What did you do? I sipped my wine slowly, savoring the moment. I did what you were planning to do to me. I just got there first. Her hands trembled. Her lips parted like she wanted to scream, but she held back, probably realizing this was real. You can't do this, she whispered. Already did. Emily's chest rose and fell rapidly. She shook her head. No. I set those accounts up myself. You don't have access. There's no way. I laughed. Emily, you're smart. But you're also lazy. You used the same security questions for everything. It took me all of an hour to get into every single account. Her eyes widened. You hacked me. Call it what you want. I placed my phone down. Point is, you don't have a cent to your name anymore. Emily was shaking. Her perfectly crafted world, shattering right before her eyes. She suddenly grabbed her wine glass and threw it across the room. It shattered against the fireplace, red liquid splattering across the wood. You think this is over? She hissed, her voice low and venomous. You think I need that money? I can rebuild. I can get more. I smiled. Not if you're in prison. She stilled, dead silent. Her breath hitched. Slowly, I stood up, towering over her. You were sloppy, Emily. You left a trail. All those fake accounts. The offshore transfers. The fraudulent business you used to funnel money. I'd scared. You thought you were untouchable. She swallowed hard, trying to mask her fear. You wouldn't. I nodded toward my laptop sitting on the counter. The evidence is already with my lawyer. Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, the works. Emily's nails dug into her palms. She was spiraling, scrambling for a way out. Her lips curled into a sneer. You think anyone will believe you? I'll tell them you were abusing me. That you were controlling, paranoid. I cut her off. You could. But that would be hard to prove when I have years' worth of texts, emails, and recordings showing the opposite. Her mouth snapped shut. I could see her brain working, trying to grasp at any last lifeline. Then, desperation. She suddenly stepped closer, her voice softening. Nathan, her fingers trailed up my arm. You don't have to do this. We can fix this. We can still be happy. I let her touch me for 2 seconds before grabbing her wrist and shoving it away. She gasped, stumbling back. I smiled coldly. You disgust me. Her lips trembled. Nathan, please. I grabbed my keys. Pack your things. You're leaving tonight. Her face twisted into something ugly. You can't kick me out. This is my house too. No, it's not, I said smoothly. Your name was never on the deed. Her breath hitched again. She hadn't realized. I had made sure of it years ago. Emily's body shook. Her hands clenched into fists. You planned this. I smirked. Like I said, checkmate. And for the first time in her life, Emily had lost. Emily stood frozen, her hands trembling at her sides. Her face, usually composed and manipulative, was a mask of pure disbelief. She had spent years thinking she was the smartest person in the room, that she had me wrapped around her little finger, that she could betray me, bleed me dry, and walk away untouched. She never saw it coming. The realization settled in her eyes, dark and panicked. Her breathing was unsteady. Her lips parted like she wanted to scream, but couldn't find the words. Finally, she swallowed and whispered, You're bluffing. I exhaled a laugh, shaking my head. Still in denial, huh? Her jaw clenched. You don't have anything on me. You're trying to scare me. I tilted my head, pretending to consider. Let's see. I stepped past her, grabbed my laptop from the counter, and opened a folder titled Emily's Greatest Hits right in front of her. The first file? A recording. With a single click, her voice filled the room. Listen, no one is ever going to catch me, all right? Nathan is an idiot. I've got the accounts set up, the paperwork buried, and once I'm done, he'll be left with nothing. He'll be begging on the streets before he even realizes what happened. The blood drained from Emily's face. The next file? Bank statements. Every shady transaction. Every offshore wire. Every dollar she had tried to hide. I clicked again. Emails. Her conversations with her lover. Details of how they planned to run away. How they mocked me. I watched her closely, drinking in every flicker of emotion. Shock. Anger. Terror. I shut the laptop and folded my arms. Still think I'm bluffing? Emily's hands clenched into fists. Then she did something unexpected. She lunged for my laptop. I anticipated it. The second she moved, I sidestepped, watching as she stumbled forward and nearly crashed into the counter. Wow, I chuckled. Desperate, are we? She spun around, her eyes wild. Delete it. I scoffed. Not happening. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. Nathan, you don't have to do this. Let's talk. Just you and me. I raised a brow. Talk? Like adults? You mean the way we were supposed to before you decided to stab me in the back? She reached out, but I stepped back. Her voice softened. Nathan, listen. I made mistakes, okay? But we don't have to end like this. I laughed bitterly. Oh, we ended the second you started plotting against me. Emily was spiraling. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, a way out. And then, her last move. She straightened, smoothing down her dress. The panic was gone, replaced by calculated manipulation. Fine, she said smoothly. You want me to leave? I will. But let's be real. If you send this to the police, do you know what will happen? I folded my arms. Enlighten me. She smirked. People will talk. Do you really want everyone knowing that your wife outplayed you? That she made a fool out of you for years? I smirked right back. See, that would have worked. if I hadn't already played the first move. Her brow furrowed. What? I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. Live stream. Thousands of viewers. Watching. Listening. Every word she had said. Every desperate attempt to manipulate me. Her entire downfall. Emily's mouth fell open. You? Yeah. I pocketed my phone. Say hi to the audience. Her breath came out in sharp, ragged gasps. Her whole body trembled as she realized the weight of it all. You, she swallowed hard. You destroyed me. No, I corrected. You destroyed yourself. She took a step back, her hands shaking. For the first time, Emily had nothing left. Her money? Gone. Her lover? He'd leave the second he realized she was broke. Her reputation? Shattered. She was alone, and she knew it. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, she straightened her spine. This isn't over, she hissed. I smiled. Oh, but it is. I walked to the front door, pulled it open, and stepped aside. Get out. Emily stood frozen, her chest rising and falling with deep, furious breaths. But there was nothing left to say. She turned and stormed out, heels clicking against the pavement. I exhaled slowly, watching as she disappeared into the night. Then, I shut the door, and for the first time in years, I was free. The silence in the house was deafening. For the first time in years, there was no tension in the air, no second-guessing, no lingering paranoia. Just peace. I poured myself a drink and leaned against the kitchen counter, watching the ice swirl in the glass. The adrenaline from Emily's downfall was still pumping through my veins, but something else settled in my chest. A strange emptiness. Years of marriage. Years of believing in someone who was never real. It was all over. Or so I thought. Because Emily wasn't done yet. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. At first, I ignored it. I had barely slept, my mind still replaying last night over and over. But when the calls didn't stop, I finally reached over and checked. 50 missed calls. Texts flooded my screen, all from friends, colleagues, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. Dude, what the hell is happening? Saw the stream. Holy crap, are you okay? You need to check the news. My stomach dropped. I switched on the TV, and there she was, Emily, sitting in some high-end studio, looking completely composed. Her makeup was flawless, her dress elegant, and her expression? Pure, calculated sympathy. The headline beneath her read, "Betrayed wife speaks out. Husband set her up." My jaw clenched. The reporter leaned in, voice dripping with concern. "Emily, can you tell us what happened?" Emily let out a shaky breath, as if she were the victim. "It's been a nightmare," she said, her voice soft. "Nathan, he changed. He became obsessed with controlling me. I tried to leave, but he started tracking my every move. I had no choice but to run. I nearly dropped my glass." She was flipping the entire story. I sat there, watching as she twisted reality into something out of a soap opera. She painted herself as the innocent wife trapped in a toxic marriage, claiming that I had used fake evidence to destroy her life. Everything he showed, she continued, edited, manipulated. I was the one trying to escape. The reporter nodded solemnly. "And now, you're left with nothing." Emily looked down, biting her lip as if fighting back tears. "I don't care about the money. I just want my life back." This woman was unreal. I slammed my glass down. She was playing the victim. And worse, people were buying it. The comments on the live feed were split, some siding with me, others calling me a psycho for humiliating my wife on air. And then came the real bombshell. The reporter turned to the camera. "Emily has officially filed a lawsuit against Nathan. She's suing for defamation, emotional distress, and financial damages." Lawsuit. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding. She was trying to bury me, and she might actually succeed. I needed a plan. Fast. I called my lawyer, Jake, a guy I had known since college. The moment he picked up, he didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Tell me you saw it." "I saw it," I muttered. "What the hell do we do?" Jake sighed. "She's smart. She's not fighting you in private. She's taking this to the public. If you don't hit back strategically, you'll be crucified." I rubbed my temples. "How do we hit back?" "We need proof. The real, unedited versions of everything." I frowned. "I already streamed it live." "That's not enough." His voice was firm. "She'll say you manipulated the clips. We need solid, undeniable evidence." I exhaled slowly, thinking, there had to be something. Then it hit me. Emily had always been arrogant. She had done shady things for years, thinking no one would ever catch her. And the thing about people like her? They left loose ends. I pulled open my laptop and started digging. Emails, bank records, encrypted messages. And then, I found it. A hidden folder buried deep in her old backup files. I clicked on it, and my screen filled with screenshots, legal documents, and messages she never wanted me to see. One email, in particular, caught my eye. Once we move the last $100,000, he'll never find it. We'll be on the next flight to Paris by Friday. My breath caught. She had planned everything. I forwarded it all to Jake. His response came seconds later. This is what buries her. The next day, I made my move. If Emily wanted a war, she was getting one. I released everything. Not just a live stream, a full expose. A detailed, time-stamped breakdown of her entire operation. Every scam, every lie, every stolen cent. And then, the final nail in the coffin. I uploaded the raw footage of Emily admitting her guilt. No edits. No cuts. Just the truth. Social media exploded. The narrative flipped overnight. The same news channels that had painted Emily as a victim were now calling her out. The headlines shifted. Emily caught in her own lies. The truth exposed. Scandal unfolds. Wife's secret bank transfers discovered. New evidence destroys Emily's claims. I watched as her empire crumbled. She tried to fight back. She went on another interview. But this time, she was met with hard questions. The public wasn't buying her lies anymore. Her voice cracked. This isn't fair. The reporter didn't even blink. Emily, you said Nathan fabricated everything, yet we now have official records proving otherwise. Can you explain? She stammered. For the first time, she had no way out. I turned off the TV, a slow smile creeping onto my face. Checkmate. Emily was cornered. The world finally saw her for what she was, a liar, a fraud, a manipulator. Every smug grin, every fake tear, every calculated move, exposed. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I had won. She had no way out. Or so I thought. Because Emily? She wasn't done yet. It started with a knock on my door. Late at night. I frowned, checking my phone, 2:47 a.m. Who the hell? Cautiously, I approached the door. My gut told me to ignore it, but something in the air, something off, kept me moving forward. I opened the door, and there she was. Emily. She stood there in the dim glow of the porch light, looking different, disheveled, hair messy, makeup smeared, dressed in a hoodie and jeans, not her usual designer armor. But her eyes? They were still the same. Cold, calculating, dangerous. I exhaled sharply. What the hell do you want? She smiled. Not a sad smile. Not an apologetic one. A smile that sent a chill down my spine. We need to talk. I let out a dry laugh. Talk. Emily, we're past that. You tried to destroy me. I don't know what game you're playing, but... No games, she interrupted, stepping forward. Just let me in. 5 minutes. I shook my head. Not a chance. Her smile widened. Are you sure? Then, she reached into her bag, and my blood ran cold. A flash drive. She held it up between two fingers, tilting her head. Because what's on here? She leaned in slightly, voice a whisper. It might change everything. I didn't want to let her in. Every instinct screamed at me to shut the door in her face, to walk away, to end this for good. But something about the way she held that flash drive, too confident, too smug, made me hesitate. If I didn't hear her out, I'd always wonder. With a clenched jaw, I stepped aside. 5 minutes. She walked past me like she still owned the place, heading straight for the living room. I followed, every muscle in my body tense. She plugged the drive into my laptop, her hands steady. You think you've won, she murmured. You think you ended me. I folded my arms. I don't think, Emily. I know. She smirked. Then watch. I did. And within seconds, my stomach dropped. It was footage. Of me. Of us. Clips from our marriage. Dinners, conversations, arguments. But twisted, edited in a way that made me look unstable. Me raising my voice. Me slamming a door. Me pacing late at night, frustrated, exhausted. Out of context, it looked bad. Really bad. Emily sighed dramatically. See, darling, you thought you were the only one gathering evidence. But I've been preparing for this moment for a long time. I stared at her, disgust creeping up my spine. This is bull asterisk 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 asterisk. She shrugged. Maybe. But do you think the internet cares about the truth? I clenched my fists. No one will believe you. She laughed, a sharp, delighted sound. Oh, Nathan. Sweet, naive Nathan. They don't have to believe me. They just have to doubt you. I gritted my teeth, trying to stay calm. What do you want? She leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Everything. Emily wanted to flip the game. She knew she couldn't win in court. The evidence against her was too strong. But public perception? That was still up for grabs. And if she could make me look unstable, dangerous, an abuser, she could paint herself as the victim again. It didn't matter that she was lying. It only mattered that people believed her version first. You release that, I said, voice tight, and I'll destroy you. Her smile didn't falter. Destroy me all you want. But in the court of public opinion, you'll never recover. I stared at her, rage boiling under my skin. She tilted her head. But I'm feeling generous. Let's make a deal. I crossed my arms. I'm not giving you a damn cent. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please. I don't need your money. I frowned. Then what do you want? She leaned back, stretching leisurely. Simple. You walk away. No more public attacks. No more evidence drops. No more trying to expose me. She smiled. You let this whole thing die, and in return, I won't release these edited treasures. I clenched my jaw. She had me cornered. If she released those clips, everything I built, my career, my reputation, would be ruined. And she knew it. I needed to think. Fast. Because one thing was clear, Emily wasn't bluffing. I could see it in her eyes. She would burn everything down if it meant taking me with her. So I exhaled slowly and did something I never thought I'd do. I smiled. You know what, Emily? I said, tilting my head. You're right. Her smirk faltered slightly. What? You win, I said smoothly. I'll back off. No more public fights. No more exposés. Let's call it a truce. She narrowed her eyes. Just like that. I shrugged. Just like that. She studied me for a long moment, searching for a trick. But Emily had one fatal flaw. She always underestimated me. After a moment, she grinned. Smart choice, Nathan. I walked her to the door. She turned, giving me one last satisfied smirk. See? We didn't have to be enemies. I nodded. You're right. Then I shut the door and immediately pulled out my phone. Because what Emily didn't know, I had cameras. Every second of our conversation, recorded. Every threat, every manipulation, every smug admission, caught on tape. And now, it was my move. Nathan closed the door and exhaled slowly, forcing his pulse to steady. Every part of him itched to react, to storm back outside, to throw Emily's smug face into the dirt where it belonged. But instead, he moved with precision, calculated steps taking him straight to his laptop. The second Emily had started talking, the hidden cameras in his living room had been rolling. Now he had her. For real this time. He pulled up the footage. The raw, unfiltered truth of her threats played out on the screen. No clever edits, no manipulative cuts, just Emily, in all her arrogance, admitting her plan to ruin him. It was even better than he could have hoped for. She had walked into his home thinking she still controlled the game. Instead, she had handed him the checkmate on a silver platter. For months, she had taken everything from him, his trust, his dignity, his peace of mind. She had lied, cheated, humiliated him in front of the world. And just when he thought she was finally out of his life, she came back, trying to take the one thing he had left, his reputation. Not this time. He wasn't the same man who had discovered her betrayal, shattered and blindsided. That version of Nathan had been broken. This version was something else entirely. He grabbed his phone and made the call. The lawyer's voice came through the speaker, groggy but sharp. Nathan? It's 3 a.m. Yeah, and I have something that can bury Emily for good. Silence. Then, interest. I'm listening. Nathan uploaded the footage as he talked. He laid it all out. Her threats, her manipulation, the way she planned to twist the narrative to paint him as the villain. His lawyer, once cautious and measured, was now fully alert, his tone shifting from sleepy to energized. This is it, the lawyer said. This is what we needed. The courts can argue evidence all day, but this proves intent. It proves she's been orchestrating this from the start. Nathan leaned back, staring at the screen. Emily's smug face was frozen mid-smirk, her confidence practically radiating from the image. It was sickening. What do we do with it? Nathan asked, voice cold. We go public. It was risky. Emily had spent years perfecting the art of deception, controlling the narrative so that she was always the victim, the misunderstood wife, the wronged woman. But this? Even she couldn't spin her way out of this. The lawyer agreed to handle the legal aspects, but Nathan knew one thing. This had to be bigger than a courtroom battle. This had to be a reckoning. By noon the next day, the footage was everywhere. Nathan didn't just release it. He unleashed it. Social media, news outlets, forums that had once debated his character, they all had the unfiltered truth. And the reaction? Explosive. The same people who had doubted him, who had called him weak or accused him of being the villain, were now seeing Emily for who she truly was. Her carefully constructed mask? Shattered. Her fans? Turning on her. Her lawyers? Scrambling. Nathan watched it all unfold from a distance, not feeling satisfaction, but relief. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. And Emily? She was finished. The call came at midnight. Not from her. She wasn't that bold anymore. It was from an unknown number. He answered without speaking. At first, silence. Then, a voice. Low. Trembling. You destroyed me. It was Emily. Nathan closed his eyes, letting the moment settle. The power had shifted. No, he said finally. You did that to yourself. A shaky breath came through the line. I have nothing left. For the first time, she sounded human. Not the manipulative, calculating woman he had once loved. Just small. Nathan should have felt pity. Should have felt something. He didn't. Instead, he simply exhaled. Now you know how it feels. Then, he ended the call. And just like that, Emily was gone. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, media attention, and damage control. For her. Nathan? He walked away untouched. The courts sided with him. The settlements ruled in his favor, and his name, once dragged through the mud, was now cleared. But the most surprising part? The silence. Emily, once the woman who had fought tooth and nail to control the narrative, disappeared. No statements. No defenses. No staged comebacks. She had lost. And deep down, she knew it. Nathan stood in front of his apartment window, watching the city lights flicker. It was over. For the first time in months, maybe years, he felt at peace. Not because he had won, but because he was finally free.